Hello, spiritual explorers, and welcome to Hocus Focus, mystical topics for spiritual explorers. I'm your host, Megan Rounds, spiritual connector, healer, energist, and founder of Mystical Mashup. Welcome to today's show, where we have Nicole Powers here to talk with us about the art of body scanning. I'm super excited for this topic. I hope you are too. So let's get started. Today's guest, who resides in Edmond, Oklahoma with her dog Griffin, is a healing artist and intuitive guide with a lifelong passion for helping people connect with their mind, body, and spirit. She's an intuitive life coach, spiritual teacher, intuitive reader, as well as a certified ultimate energetics practitioner and massage therapist. She is the founder of Belief Babes, a community of women who are replacing their bullshit beliefs with badass beliefs, becoming more powerful in the process. She is also a moderator and teacher in the Lightworkers Lab, which is where she hosts her weekly program Spirit Song with Nicole Powers every Wednesday at noon Central Time. Her upcoming Lightworkers Lab live weekend workshop, Intuitive Body Scans, takes place on May 30th and 31st, and we'll go deeper into the concepts we discussed today. Please give a galactic welcome to Nicole Powers. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome. Let me just make sure we add your contact information here to anyone who may have missed it before. Welcome, and thank you so much for saying yes to my invitation to come on this show and talk about body scanning.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited.
Me too. Well, let's just dive right in. And, the big question I have, well, I have all kinds of questions, of course, but one of them is, what is body scanning in a general sense, but also, and maybe more importantly, how did you get interested or involved with it?
Great question. So body scanning is a process of taking note of what's happening in your physical body. In this class, we're also going to be focusing on energy, your energy body and the energy systems within you. And we're also going to be talking about your aura, your field, outside of you. We each have energy around us, sort of like a little bubble that's ours. And then even beyond that, we'll be focusing on how to body scan for other people. But a body scan is simply exactly what it says. It is just a scan. It's just a noticing of what is happening in your body. And then of course there's more to it. Once you notice what's happening, there are lots of fun things you can do with the information you gather, but it's really an information gathering technique. And it's very simple, very easy to do. Anybody can do it. And what got me interested? Well, I've been a massage therapist for 11 years. And so I would have never, thought that massage therapy is, and I wouldn't have called it a body scan, but it definitely is. So I've been doing it in practice for my clients for a long time. And then once I started sort of exploring energy and bringing in the mind, body, spirit connection into my massage therapy practice, I got really interested in how does everything affect each other? Because we have all these different systems that we tend to compartmentalize or break down. We have our body. We physically experience that. So we kind of understand what that is, but not everybody is as knowledgeable about the body as other people. Mm-hmm. And then we all have an energy system, but some of us don't even know we have one, and then we all have a mind and we all have a spirit. And how do those things interact with each other? What do they do? How does one affect the other? I got really interested in those concepts because I would come to a client, I would be working on a client, and, I'd find something wrong with the body. And my job as a massage therapist is to correct that imbalance. And so I would come to something and people would often say to me, I didn't even know that was there. I didn't even know that I had pain in that area. They come to me for something very specific, whatever they know to be their pain. They have a sore neck, or they have a low back pain, or their knee hurts. They took a little injury, or whatever it is. They come for a purpose. And
for sure,
I focus on medical massage. I'm not really a soothing practitioner. I mean, it can be soothing, but my clients, I put them through their paces. And so they come in to be healed, to get fixed, to have something, pain alleviated. But while I will alleviate that pain, I'll find new things they didn't even know existed. And so I started getting curious about that. Like, why do people not know what's going on with them? Like how, and part of the mechanism of your body is to hide pain from you. Because if you felt everything that happens, you would be in pain all the time. So the body actually masks pain. By the time your neck hurts, there's been something happening for a long time. You've been sleeping wrong, or you've been looking down at your phone too much, or unless it's an injury, some form of impact or something that happens, aches and pains that emerge overnight did not happen overnight, 90% of the time. And so, as a practitioner, as a massage therapist, I of course studied what kinds of things lead to that pain, but we didn't really talk about how does your energy system affect your body? How do your emotions affect your body? How does your thinking and your neurological pathways, how does that affect your body? And so I began to get curious about some of these things, because a lot of times what my clients would have pain, what my massage therapy training taught me didn't line up. It wasn't like, it's not a formula A plus, like you must have been doing this to receive that kind of pain. And sometimes it didn't add up. And the body is mysterious in some ways. And so I began looking at other modalities and other practices. And in my own life, I began to, my spiritual journey really began to take off about 2 years into my massage therapy business. And so, meditation and prayer, when I first started doing massage, wasn't a staple in my life. And then it became one. And so I started getting curious about how do those things affect our body, and how can we incorporate the gifts from spirituality into, there's got to be a connection. And so I just started exploring things, and body scanning became one of the ways that I have started to use. Like, it wasn't that language wasn't what I it's evolved along the way. Now I know that that's what I was doing all along, but I approach each of my massage clients as a blank slate. So of course, most therapists, when you go to get a massage, if you've never seen the therapist before, you fill out a form and you check boxes about your pain areas, your prior surgeries and conditions, and so that we can have information about you coming to the table. And I do look at those things, and I do, in the back of my mind, I kind of have a general idea of what I might find when I lay my hands on you. But it's very minimal the way that I practice massage therapy. Usually I try to keep myself disconnected from that information, because if I have preconceived notions when I come to the body, then when the body presents me with something that doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to be stuck thinking, well, how, but this is the box they checked, instead of, okay, that's the box they checked, but this is what their body is telling me is needed. And who's the professional, right? Me. So in my practice, I've had to learn to trust myself and my instincts and my gifting over what my clients say about their bodies. And I learned that most people don't really know what's going on with them. And part of my desire is the scripture about teaching a man to fish rather than going and getting him fish. Part of my desire as a human now is to teach people how to be more in touch with their own bodies, so they need their massage therapist less. So they need their, spiritual mentors less. So they're more self-reliant, and not to be fully self-reliant, because I think there's danger there too, but there's got to be a balance. And, you and I, Megan, share, we love balance. That's our sweet spot. It's the game changer. And so I really, body scanning is a way for me to teach people how to better care for themselves. And ultimately, that's really what I want to be doing with my life, is teaching people how to be empowered to use what the gifts that are already within them. Your body's actually self-healing. All I do as a massage therapist is remind the body what it already knows. All I do as a spiritual teacher is remind a student what they already know. Everything I do, I'm not that big a deal. I'm not that important. I don't have that much power. You have the power. And my power is just to assist you to amplify what you've already got going on and to teach you a little bit about how to access your own self-healing. But even a massage, I don't actually fix anything. I just remind the body of what it already knows. So body scanning is a way to, on a daily basis, just much like any other practice, whether it's meditation or brushing your teeth, we need maintenance. We require maintenance as humans. And so body scanning is another way to practice maintenance that's actually more designed to promote awareness and not judgment, which I think is a life skill too. So while we are focused on the body and the energy systems in a body scanning practice, it actually teaches you life skills too. So I just think it's one of those things that kind of covers a lot of bases. And I like modalities that address a lot of things and bring it all together, because I just think sometimes we teach things that are so specific that it narrows. I like to broaden things out and not narrow them down so much. So that's why I'm interested in it and why I love it.
That's super cool. There's so many things in there I made notes of because first of all, just kind of you circled around from the beginning to the end around mind, body, spirit, and then things that combine those things. Well, it's no secret that I like to mash things together. It's kind of a big thing for me, in fact. And I had written down earlier just about how compartmentalized a lot of people have become when it comes to thinking about their mind or feeling or experiencing their body or their spiritual journey or other aspects. Relationships are different than a relationship we may have with ourselves. And all of those things have become so compartmentalized. I love the fact that you do bring those things together into a more integrative approach. And I love the fact that you do this through massage. When you said that massage is a kind of body scan in and of itself, I wonder, would you say more about that? I think it's because I have my own probably false preconceived notions, where there's a little, it's like, well, how is that a body scan?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So for me, like I said, I like to come to my clients as a blank canvas. When I was in school, we learned about the bone structure, how it's supposed to be, what they do, what their function are, the muscles, how they're supposed to operate, their origin, all these technical terms, like medical terms of how things are supposed to be. And then we learned what the problems are, what in general terms, people, problems emerge. But there's so much that we don't know. And so many things that you can't really, especially in spiritual terms, like for me, science and spirituality are not like opposite extremes. I actually think they marry together a lot more. But there are people who approach massage therapy as a science, and there are people who approach massage therapy as more of an art form or a holistic method, a more spiritual practice. And I'm somewhere in the middle where I just mash both of those things together. I like the science, I like the art and the spiritual, and I just kind of mash it together. So when I was learning about the imbalances we get, things like trigger points, adhesions, things that people call knots. Everybody says the word knot. I have a knot in my, but knot is a very general layperson term. A knot can be a bunch of other things, and how you fix those things as a massage therapist is very different. So how you address a trigger point is different than how you address an adhesion so there's just like a lot of technical terms. But for me, if I get stuck on all of that technical stuff, then I'm not staying receptive to what the body wants to tell me. And so for me, a massage is a body scan because I go to the body, I put my hands on it, and I go searching around. And when the body tells me something, and how it tells me something happens in a lot of different ways. It can tell me things through heat, through coolness, through the way a muscle feels. And when I was first in school, they would say like, okay, here's an adhesion, put your hand here. And do you feel how that's different than this tissue? And I would do it and I would think, nope, feels all the same to me. Like, no, I don't get it all. And for a long time, I was like, I'll never get the hang of this. Like, I'm not going to be a good massage therapist because I can't tell the difference between healthy tissue and non-healthy tissue. It's all the freaking same to me. But the more you touch someone, the more you get familiar with bodies in general, then something shifted along the way in my school where now I can tell when something's not right immediately because I've touched so many bodies. I know what they're supposed to feel like, that I know when something's wrong. And that to me is scanning, is taking a inventory, if you will, of what's happening in the body, what feels correct and what doesn't. And a personal practice, you can't know what feels correct and what doesn't if you don't know what your homeostasis or your, what your control
Baseline.
is, like, yeah, what the baseline is. So if you're not monitoring yourself on a regular basis with the practice of a body scan, you're not going to know when something's wrong until it's really wrong. And we could prevent something being really wrong if we catch it earlier. And so a body scan is very preventative. And I think for people, it's important to kind of just be more aware of, like, what are you made of? What's going on with you? And it does help with presence too, with being really present for just what's there. And so for me, when I put hands on people, I'm scanning for anything that catches my attention. And sometimes that makes sense with what I know scientifically. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'm just like, this is interesting. What is this? And I get curious about it. And that's what I mean when I say massage is a body scan, because that's how I approach it. I'm just scanning the area to see, like, what's here? What's going on here?
Sure. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying that. I think one of the things that keeps coming back to me is the intuitive aspect of how you approach massage. And it reminded me of when you were saying that you don't want to put too much attention on what the client brings to the table in terms of the pain or other things that they're experiencing, because then you may get messages that are confusing, or that maybe you'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. And that sounds so much like doing like readings, like intuitive readings, that it's like such a parallel to me. And I hadn't thought of it in terms of, the massage piece and the body scanning piece. And I love the fact that you take this more open, expansive approach and allowing that information to come in for you. But I also heard a lot around subtle energy, and like at first how you weren't really able to notice those subtleties in muscle, like the abrasions, I think, is one of the things that you had used, and what that feels like. And then at some point it did. Do you remember how that shift occurred, or was there like an aha moment for you at that point where it's like, all right, I get it?
It was subtle. It did feel like it happened in an instant, where it was just one day I just realized, oh, I can feel that. Like, I know what they're talking about now. I know, it's hard to contextualize, like, it's hard to put into words. And I was really fortunate when I did massage therapy school. It was a brand new private school, and I was one of 2 students. And so I had a lot of like one-on-one training. Yeah, it was more like an apprenticeship than being in class all the time. And we would study something in a book, and then we would have a body, and we would, take the context of the book and explore the body, like the shoulder or some certain joint or whatever it was. And so, but one day it just like, as my massage therapist would show me something, and then, what is it? Show one, something. Now I don't know what it is. Something like show one, do one, teach one, or something like that. Okay. So they would show us what to do. We would try to do it. And then we would have to like craft, because my hands are different than my massage therapist or my trainer's hands were. So what he could do, sometimes my hands wouldn't do that same thing. And so I'd have to find out how to do what he did, but with my tools. And one day it was just like, oh, I know what he's talking about when he says it's going to feel a little smushy, or it's going to feel, the muscle is going to feel ridged, or it's just going to, whatever word adjective he would use. There was just one day when I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. It does feel like that. Or, oh my God, I feel a knot here. I feel something that I've never felt before in this part of the body. And it's really funny because one time I was, doing my thing, and I was like, oh, I've never felt this before. What is this? And so I asked my instructor, like, feel right here, like, what do you feel right here? And he was like, oh, Nicole, very good. You have found a zit. And it was a zit that hadn't emerged yet. And like how he knew that, I don't know, but because he's so, it was a sebaceous gland, and he knew what that felt like underneath the skin. And I hadn't felt that before. And so, for it's interesting to be new at something because you're not you don't have all this knowledge and training to fall back on. And so I was just exploring and like, oh, that's interesting. I've never felt what this feels like before. What is this? And this is it.
There you go. But
you
isn't
know,
it good to know the difference? I mean,
yeah,
you kind of want to, and wouldn't it be better to know that while you're learning about it than when you're with a client and say, that's weird, that's concerning, or something that
yeah,
ends
yes.
up being something that isn't all that big of a deal.
Hmm.
Wow, I love that. It's so, so when you're doing this, not to really dwell a lot on the massage piece, but that's hands-on, right? It's not like the, etheric part of, I mean, we probably speak similar, but maybe not exactly the same language around auras. So I'm trying to be really general, but there's subtle energies right above the body. And can you feel it at that level as well? Or do you try?
So feeling is sort of a subjective term. It may not be touch, right? With the massage, that is touch based. I'm feeling with my hand, with my physical hands in their physical body. Feeling in the energetic sense is a bit different. It's more of a sensory quality. So, can some people feel their own energy? Yes. Can other people, do they not sense energy in a feeling way? Yes. So there's no real yes or no answer to that question. It's more, and this is how the intuition is connected, that people experience their own energy body just as differently as intuitives receive their information differently. So if someone is clairaudient, they may sense or perceive energy in an auditory fashion because all energy has a frequency. It does have a sound. I don't hear energy, right? I tend to sense it through tingling, through heat, through a feeling in my own physical body, but other people sense it differently. So that's the great thing about a body scan practice or an energy scan practice or the body scan practice. You could take that foundation, it's really a foundational practice, and lay it on top of so many other things to gather information, to explore, to be curious, to play. And, you could do it with anything. And so that's kind of the cool thing about this workshop. If you take the workshop, that you'll not only walk away with how to do a body scan, which, by the way, you could just Google how to do a body scan. It's not difficult to do. And so if you don't want to take the workshop, you could just Google it. But the reason to teach a workshop on it is because there's so many nuance and subtlety and interesting ways that each individual is going to experience things differently. And one of the things we do as humans is we write ourselves off. Well, that doesn't sound like what I've heard before, so it must not count. It must not, must be my imagination, or it must be, like, oh, I really didn't sense that. Like, we discount ourselves, we discount our experiences. And I think that's why practice is so important, because if we practice long enough, it begins to be where I can't discount it. I'm no longer questioning, is this a trigger point or is it? I just know the difference now. But I wouldn't know the difference if I hadn't felt those things over and over and over and being able to tell the difference.
Yeah, and one of the words that, seriously, you may have seen it come into my head, it was so loud, was nuance. And one of my new favorite words, I love that word, in part because, well, in facets and things like that, because I mean, I totally hear you about people writing themselves off as not being able to do things or not being good at things that they think other people are good at because they may follow a more, I mean, some people do fit into a more conventional experience that people say, oh, well, I just see it and this is what it looks like. And others are like, yeah, I see that too. And then if you don't feel it or I don't feel it, then it's like, oh, crap, well, I suck at that. But that's not the way it is at all. There's so much nuance to energy in general and that whole intuitive element and how we explore our gifts. And I'm totally in the midst of that myself. So as you can see, hopefully, that I'm really energized by that because it's, I think it's so important to recognize that everybody's experience is different. Even the people who share similar experiences still have slight differences in how things work. And the nuances are the thing that brings it home to who we are and how we experience things. And so I love the fact that that's a big piece of what people will experience in this workshop is how to recognize their own nuance. And and be able to carry that with them in anything. That awareness piece to me is it's hugely important, because you can't really build on something if you're not aware of it. I mean, you might be able
Yeah.
to, but it's kind of like a house of cards, So it's like that awareness piece is a huge piece. And so it sounds like in the workshop, that's what people will be doing a lot of practice around, is just learning what is true for them.
Yeah, learning what's true for them, learning some common patterns, because when we know what's common, then we can, when that happens in our experience. So in a typical body scan practice, there's a process, that you go through. It's a step-by-step process. And so that's the common. But what happens in each step for each person is going to differ a little bit, is going to be different. Actually, probably every person, there might be shared experiences that kind of overlap, but no one will experience it the exact same way you do, because they're not you. And so no one can Megan, no one can Nicole. We're the only ones that can do that. I might, share an experience with you, but there's still going to be subtleties that are different about it, because we're different people. So they're going to learn a step-by-step process that's common and it's the same as the template, but it's just a template. It's like a blank piece of coloring, the coloring book that has the Care Bear on it, and 50 people color it, and all the Care Bears look different. It's the same Care Bear, right? It's the same picture, but how you fill in the color is going to be very different and unique to you. Even if you use the same exact color, my strokes are going to look different than your strokes. And, so it's just, there will be a lot of similarity, because think similarity is often the thing that we like to kind of have a method or a methodology, or feel like we know what to do. But then from there, that it's the platform to kind of leap off and make it your own, and discover what's there for you with your awareness. And so I don't know if I answered your question, but
Oh yeah, yeah. And
okay.
I mean, the fact that there are these different things that people will learn about how to do a body scan, but then how does it work for each individual? And then also people's ability to learn from one another about the differences, because those are just as important as the similarities. And honoring both is what I
Yes.
heard.
Yeah, honoring both. Exactly.
So one other thing before we move, well, I don't know if we're going to move into the other phase just yet, but the other phase being Nicole is going to share with us an exercise, and then she'll talk a little bit more about the workshop itself. But I was talking earlier today with a friend about, well, actually we were texting, but still talking in a sense around the importance of energetic hygiene. And that's what our term for it is, really creating a practice that we use consistently to ensure, well, to keep us energetically healthy. And it sounds like body scanning would fall into that category, but is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we're actually going to have a whole section in the workshop, the difference between energetic hygiene and teaching some methods of that. Energetic hygiene could be its own workshop. There are so many ways to practice, which is really cool. We're going to talk about energetic hygiene and a few key ways that I like to practice. But we're also going to talk about energetic dominion or sovereignty, and how energetic hygiene is important to an extent. But I'm a big believer that ritual is for us to buy into what we already do. Just like with massage, when I say your body is already self-healing, I'm just reminding it how to heal. Any energetic practice or ritual that we perform is just a symbol for us to get on board with what we already are capable of doing, which is being energetically sovereign and running energetic dominion. In order to, empath is a really hot topic right now. And being an empath and the problems that can occur when we take our empathic ability too far. And that's real. That's real for people. And I don't ever want to diminish that, because that's a journey I had to learn how to navigate myself. And I get it. But at the end of the day, like you're not an empath without your permission. No one can steal energy from me or without my permission, without my consent. Now, I might not know consciously that I'm giving permission. I might have some energetic things going on with me that are running without my knowledge of it. And, it's kind of like a gate. I left a gate open and I don't remember I left it open. And so cows are getting in and out, or, whatever it is. But, and part of the beauty of a body scan is knowing, oh, I mean, you got to drive down the road. If you live on a big farm, you got to drive by that gate to realize, oh, shoot, I left it open. If you're not doing a body scan, how do you know what your energy is doing? I didn't for a long time. I had no clue what my body was doing. And part of my journey of discovering, how to bring the body, mind, spirit all together as a cohesive unit, and allow those things to know that they do influence each other, and that it's my job as my own advocate to be monitoring all of them so I can see what the influences are. But I had therapists who helped me discover things like that. I had people just like me, massage therapists, craniosacral therapists. There's a lot of science out there about somatics and how your emotions get stored in your body, and how you're there's a lot of cool things you could look into. But it took, I went to a craniosacral therapist, and even being a massage therapist, had no idea what to expect from that particular modality and session. And I walked out of there with information about myself that I never knew, that changed everything. And so with a practice of body scanning, and, it was something that was emotional, that was affecting my gut health. What? And a lot of people just don't know about this stuff. And so, body scanning isn't necessarily going to teach somebody that, but it is going to help you monitor what's there. And then when you don't know what to do about it, there are professionals out there that can help you sort that out. But at least you'll have an idea of there's something here that I need to have, to have addressed, or have somebody else take a look at.
Yeah, and that it goes back to that awareness and how important awareness in general is. And as somebody who, I've said this before, so it won't be new for some people, at least, that I've spent what I feel is a fair amount of my life out of my body. I mean, just kind of flying around over here, and kind of enjoying that, but not really being very grounded as a result, and not really considering the connection my spirit has had with my body. It's almost like they're two separate things. And that awareness is so important. It's like now I'm starting to become more aware, but I don't, most of my life I haven't been. And it wasn't ever really, when I grew up at least, all that stressed is an important thing. More and more recently, there's a lot more out there about wanting to, have that awareness about the effects of our behavior and our actions and our thoughts and all of those things on our body. But even still, it's like you have to be ready to receive that, I think. Mm-hmm. But where am I going with this? I don't know.
Okay.
But it's just that whole thing around really finding that awareness within the body and kind of co-creating with it, instead of thinking of it as, I don't even know what I used to think of it as. It was just there. I never really realized how separated from it I was until I started exploring the empath aspect of my own experiences, and coping, and how I coped with uncomfortable situations because I was feeling so much and didn't know what it was, and just assumed it was me. So, escapist, I suppose, in a way. But bringing it all back into the body and really starting to recognize, wow, this body that I live in does so much more than what I've ever realized, and I've taken so much of it for granted. It's time to maybe give back.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing about the body. There's so many functions that we don't have control over. They just operate. We don't make our heart beat. We don't make our blood flow. Like, these things just are happening all the time for us, for our benefit. And most of us are not in touch with that. But if you wanted to be, you could. You could get in touch with that heart, the physical heart, and see what it's up to and feel gratitude towards it. Or making peace with the body, I think, is something that most people are still in process of. And I think it's because I really believe we're spiritual creatures having a human experience. And so it's just sort of like a natural thing that when we come here to this 3D experience, that we don't have a healthy relationship with this body because it's foreign to us
Yeah.
in some ways. And so, certain people leave their body and they prefer to spend time in their thought or their spirit, or just they dissociate from their body. And then other people are so, especially people with chronic pain or injuries, disabilities, different things, people will over identify with their physical body, even vanity, even people who are obsessed with their appearance, will over identify with their physical body. And neither one of those extremes are healthy. Somewhere in the middle, there's balance. And body scanning is just one of the many ways to try to make a home. I mean, this is your home. This is your temple. And so to make peace with your body, but it's also something that's always in process. Like I even though I teach this, I haven't gotten there. Like there's no like arriving there. It's a constant day-to-day thing. And one of my own body, something I learned about my own body is that, during college and after college, I put on a lot of weight. And someone at some point reflected to me that perhaps because I also didn't have any boundaries, especially during college when I was on my own for the first time and navigating the world for the first time. And I actually didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know why I was expected to know, because I was like, I thought I was ready for that stage of life. And then I got there and I'm like, no one taught me anything. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just didn't have any boundaries. I didn't have any sense of self and authority, or I just didn't, there was a lot of like, it was slightly traumatic, just like a shocking experience. And so I began to put on weight. And later someone said, well, it's because, you've created a physical boundary with your own weight. And that was revolutionary to me. Like, whoa, yeah, I have done that. And that journey for me isn't over, but I have a feeling that when my boundaries are really, really strong, the weight will probably leave. And so, everybody's in process. Everybody's in some stage of coming home to themselves, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, but the body is a great place it's the one thing that nobody can dispute that you have, right? I mean, there's a lot of argument about what the brain does, what it doesn't do, what it's capable of. We don't even know. Like, people have a lot of, different feelings about spirituality and souls and what does that mean? But no one can dispute that you have a body, you have, and your body parts we're all the same. And that was something too in massage school that I found really cool, is every time somebody would get on the table, thick, thin, black, white, tall, short, everyone looks the same on a massage table and everyone is beautiful on a massage table. And that really helped me to embrace my own body better. And I mean, like, massage therapy changed my life. Like, it really did. It's something that I didn't know I was going to ever get into. I never had the desire, like, never as a kid was like, I think I'd like to be a massage therapist. It's something I fell into, and it's such a part of my identity and my gifting. And it's where everything, all the life things like opened up. So even though I still have a relationship with my body that's in process, I love the body so much. I just have such a passion for the body, and nobody can argue with me about that you have a body. And so it's a good gateway. I call the body my spiritual gateway drug, because it's a good way to approach other things for people who feel skeptical, for people who have a natural distrust of the mind or the spirit. The body's a great way to meet those aspects of yourself.
Okay, I'm just blown away by that. That's such a wonderful, beautiful way to look at it. And I was just watching a program last night, Castles in the Sky, I think it is. And what I was really impressed with is this character's ability to connect something abstract, like we would do maybe with energy, to something really tangible. So that program was about the radar, the development of radar, and nobody knew what radar was, yet they all felt threatened through war. And so this guy's trying to make a connection about how radar might work to people who had no conceivable idea of what he was talking about. And he did a really amazing job of bringing it home. I'm not going to share it because I'll have to actually remember what that is, but that's what I heard you do with the body. That's the thing that is undisputable. Everybody has a body. Nobody's going to say, no, you don't, and that then we can, expand beyond that when people are ready. But you can start first with the body, do the scanning, which is a physical experience, and take it from there to whatever the comfort level of the person is. So that's awesome. I just also want to add, and it's just something, if you've seen me laugh when Nicole has said things like boundaries or dominion or sovereignty, I just used all three of those earlier today to describe some aspects of my own experience. And it's like, I love how I probably channeled it from you, Nicole, but it's like, oh, boundaries. I need more boundaries in my life. I would like to have more boundaries. And the whole thing you said about people had suggested, or somebody had suggested, that perhaps that is an expression of the body when those boundaries are lacking. I completely resonate with that, and I've heard it before, and it's like, yes, and it's a sign for me that boundaries for me are a thing I've been challenged by. So I just really appreciate you bringing those things up, and the fact that they are incorporated into this workshop, that around scanning. So what do you want to first go into then the exercise, talk a little bit about that, and then we'll move into more about the workshop itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the exercise I want to talk about today is simply an awareness exercise. And it's an exercise to use your five senses to perceive information without judgment. Because one of the things in the body scan class, and one of the most important pieces of a body scan, is not to judge what you find. And that's really difficult. That's really difficult because our brain wants to quantify things. It wants to make sense of things. It's a data processor. And so when it receives data, it needs to sort it out. And to be able to detach from that and just experience your experience is a really important part of the body scan process. And so I want to just kind of teach a way that you could practice that, being aware without judgment, using the five senses. This exercise doesn't have a name. I should have given it a name, but it doesn't. It just intuitively came to me. So I'll name it later. But what you do is you just use your five senses. It's kind of like I Spy. So you could use your sense of eyesight and take a look around you and spot something. I spy, I actually can see a feather over here. And then I name, instead of naming it feather, I see a feather, I'll name what it looks like to me. So it might be, it looks soft, or it looks wispy, or it looks brown, or it look, whatever I just give it a label without judging the label. And then you could touch something, find something to pick up. I have a cup, so it's plastic. I'm holding a piece of plastic in my hand. It feels smushy. I could listen to music or a movie, or to just the sounds of nature, a bird chirping, and name what it sounds like. Or if you're listening to music, try to identify, I hear a piano, I hear a woman's voice, and keep it really simple. Just, I see a feather, it is, quantify it. I hear music, I hear strings, whatever it is. Just give it one word, something simple. And just continue to do that for each of your senses. Taste something and tell yourself what it tastes like. How many times do we eat something and never take the time? We know we're tasting it. We're having a sensation, but we're not eating broccoli and going, ooh, this tastes green, or this tastes earthy, or this tastes, but do it. And you smell something and tell yourself what it smells like, just to be aware of the thing and give it a label that's neutral, non-judgmental. So you don't want to say it's soft, which means if it's soft, that means it's comfortable, or it's soothing, or if something's hard, it doesn't mean it's bad or not soothing. It's just hard. So it just is what it is. Just give it a name let the name of it be neutral, and let yourself not tell a story about what it is, but just that it is. Broccoli maybe tastes earthy. You don't have to tell yourself if you like that taste or not like that taste. It just is earthy to you. Somebody else might describe broccoli as a completely different adjective. Just give it just whatever it is for you, and just do that with all your senses, as many times as you want to, for fun, to bring awareness to your senses and how you perceive things, and then also not judging what you perceive.
That's a really awesome exercise. What I heard is descriptors, like you're describing things and you're doing it in an objective way. And it's hard to do that with words sometimes.
Yeah.
There's there's a practice I've been working on that's really similar, but it takes away the label and the judgment, and it's just with a feeling. But that's more about a feeling exercise, and this is a sensing exercise, which I think is similar. But I love the idea of doing it with the five, senses. The thought that came to me, and no pressure at all, but was high five. Because it's like, oh, you're heightening your senses in each of these areas. And I love how it's a centering practice and a presencing practice as well. Because if I'm eating broccoli, which I happen to love, I have, it's so easy to say, this is good, this tastes really yummy, or, all of that stuff, and not go any further than that. And so it's going to be fun for me, at least, and I imagine for others, to just go out there and say, well, what does that taste like? I do it a lot with smell, but I don't necessarily do it in terms of describing it. It's more about appreciating it. In spring, with all of these lovely plants that are affecting my throat and eyes, but at the same point, I really appreciate the smell. It's like, oh, what does that, what is it reminding me of? How could I describe this? And that's, I think, a really great way to heighten all senses and become prepared for increasing that awareness. So thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. And I would say that's another little qualifier. If you notice that you label it or name it something that in your mind, you're giving it the indication of good and bad, you'll want to, just like in meditation, if you want to bring yourself back to the core of the exercise, which is not to give it a good or bad, not a judgment. So smushy, that means nothing to me. That was just a sense of what I felt, and actually surprised me. Plastic, smushy, okay. And I wanted to judge, like, well, that's a weird thing that you just said. And I just stopped myself, or it doesn't have to be. So you just want to you don't want to, it is about, instead of saying, ooh, that smells good, saying, ooh, that smells like lilacs. What does it smell like? Not good or bad. Yeah, just, it smells like, and what do lilacs smell like? We know it. We know that smells like lilac, but like, what does lilac smell like? And it's just, it can be a little challenge sometimes, but go with your first instinct too. Smushy, or whatever it is, to just give yourself, like you said, that I love that name, high five, just to heighten your sense of understanding what you're sensing or naming what you're sensing.
Well, and I also thank you for clarifying that piece around judging what comes out. Because it's so easy to do that. No, it doesn't smell like, dirt, but maybe it does. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's earthy and it smells like dirt. And what does dirt smell like? And, there's all kinds of different things that can come out of that. And allowing them is one of the key pieces, I would imagine, just allowing what comes up. So super cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And feel free to use high five if you're so inclined, because things pop into my head for a reason, and it's usually not for me. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
I love it.
Yeah. And so we have about 10 minutes left. And so do you want to say a little bit more about the workshop itself, or is there anything else that you'd like to explore in our remaining time together?
Sure. I'll just kind of reiterate. The workshop is a 2-day live event, actually, and it's going to happen on May 30th and 31st, which is a Saturday, Sunday, and it will start at 11 a.m. Central Time, and we will go however long we go, but it's probably going to be an hour or 2 hours each day. If it runs long and you can't stay the whole time, that's okay. Everything will be recorded. You have access to the content for a whole year, so you can watch it as your leisure. Even if somebody, really felt compelled, like, I want to be a part of this workshop, but I have plans that weekend, you could still do it and then not join us live, but just watch what happens on the recording. And we're going to talk about the exact process of doing a body scan and how to scan energy, your own energy, your chakras, your aura, your chi. We're going to talk about what to do with the information that you gathered, how to explore that. And we're going to talk about how to scan other people. And if for people who are interested in being healers, I don't really actually like that word. Let's say if you like to facilitate healing, then this might be a class for you to come at it a different way, or to tune up your skills. Or if you want to do that and you don't yet, this is a great introduction to what the process of facilitating healing might look like, according to me, because there's 100 million ways to do it. There's no one right way or wrong way. And but I'm gonna share a lot of my journey of how I discovered also my intuition, because it did start for me in massage therapy. My entire life would have never said that I was intuitive, that I was psychic. I still don't fully own the word psychic. But I do receive information through the channel of the body first. And then I started wondering, like, well, could I expand on that? Could I get more information? And it turns out I sure can. And so I'm going to be talking about how practical things like engaging with the physical body, actually, I was intuitive. I was doing massage therapy very intuitively long before I admitted that that's what was happening. I'm going to share a little bit about my story, and also I think there are a lot of other people. I know that there are people that are going to take this class who have no idea they're intuitive yet, and they're going to walk away like, what? That's what that is. That's how I do this. And so it's really, I think it's going to be really fun. And for a lot of people who are in the lab and have taken classes already, there is, because one of the things I like to do is to give things context and to talk about the similarities, because I think language can be very divisive. And every spiritual practice out there, a lot of them are talking about the really similar things, but they're using such different language that it sounds completely different. And so, there's going to be a lot of this workshop that really ties in the practical with the spiritual and shows you that it's really all the same. It's just a language thing, a language barrier that we currently have. And that's what I had. I wouldn't have called what I did intuitive at all. It didn't feel like it was, it was psychic by any means, but it very much is. And so, but I had an issue with that word. And so I, for a long time, was just like, nah, that's not a thing.
Well, and I wonder if it goes back to what we were talking about before, in that, well, first of all, certainly with the words, they're loaded with all kinds of information that we either receive as positive or negative, or maybe somewhere in between, but also around that, because you don't see yourself as, I'm using you as an example, but because you haven't seen yourself as the psychic who has the crystal ball and the jewelry and the, turban and stuff like that, of course you're not psychic. And what is intuitive? What does that mean? And so and then there's also the I've always been that way, but not knowing what that is. Which has definitely been one of my experiences. It's like I didn't realize I had these additional gifts until I entered into an environment, the Lightworkers Lab, where I'm like, oh, wow, these are all like things. I mean, I knew some aspects of it, but not so much about where I fit in it. And so I can totally see the benefits of really exploring aspects of that, especially for people who may not realize yet that they have these gifts that they've always been putting into the world and just never realized it.
Yeah, exactly.
There was one other thing I was going to mention. We just have a couple of minutes, but would you mind just touching upon what you had said about healing versus facilitating healing? I just think that would be a really important thing to touch upon.
So a lot of people use the word healer, and there's nothing, if you use that word, if you call yourself a healer, I do not take issue with that it just doesn't work for me. And part of it is how I practice humility, in that I'm not the one, I'm cultivating healing. I'm the gardener, right? But I don't cause anything to grow. I don't cause I facilitate healing. And I like the word healing rather than healed or healer, because I believe that healing is an ongoing process. ING means it's in motion, it's going. I I've not ever felt that I've been healed completely of something, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's a process of development and continuing to evolve in my healing. And so, because even, let's just take a really practical example, which I like to do. I have a cyst in my wrist. And when it's not active or present, when it's not causing me pain, when I can't see it, sometimes I can bend my wrist and I see this big knot, and other times I can't. I would say like it's healed, right? I would say, but it comes back. I get pain there sometimes. Nothing's ever really gone. So I really like the word healing, and then facilitating healing. I just feel that nobody can really heal another person. That's not. I just don't believe that for me. That language just doesn't work for me. I believe that I assist. I facilitate healing. I don't have magical superpowers. I do, but I don't, so I do, but I want to keep my perspective of that right sized. And for me, that language of facilitating healing makes it more accurate in my mind, that I'm just showing up to help assist something that already is in motion, wants to occur, and is available.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that that piece on humility is such a key piece, and that whole kind of like being a conduit versus the Almighty, and such an important distinction. I do have one other question before we say
Sure.
so long, and that is just, do people who sign up for this workshop have to be members of the Lightworkers Lab? Okay.
No, they don't. I would love to see new faces. The lab is an open community. Even though we do have our private Facebook group, all of our workshops and all of the classes are open to the public. You don't necessarily have to be a member of the lab to take the paid courses. If you want to be a part of a community and you want to be in that social aspect of the fellowship, then I think it's important to be a member of the lab. But no, really, we provide workshops to the public as an aspect of the lab. So anybody can join the workshop, and anyone, it's good for all levels of practice, whether you don't know anything, like even if you watch this video and like none of that made sense to me, that person could take this class and walk away with some good gifts. The advanced level, people who are either already doing massage therapy, already doing energy healing, already doing, practicing their own psychic ability or giving readings or whatever they are doing, even if they're at a high professional level, there's still things that can be gained from this workshop, because I will just say I'm going to gain things by teaching it. And in my, that's why they call many of the things that are in service practice. Like, we say we practice medicine. It's a massage therapy practice, because there's no time when I'm not learning something else about my profession or the material, because it's these kinds of things are loaded. Like you just get to keep unraveling and unraveling and unraveling and peeling away the layers and going deeper and deeper into these concepts. A lot of things are very simple, but they're deep. And when we talk about the body, the mind, and the spirit and emotions, which are that's my wheelhouse. And so everything I teach is simple. Everything I teach is simple, but you can go deep with it. And so any level of experience is welcome in the class as well.
Excellent. Well, it sounds fabulous. And so I have your details up here. I have the link to the body scan workshop. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing the concept with us and just what it's all about, and that exercise, which I'm just really kind of chomping at the bit to do. Thank you. I wish you best success with this workshop and a lot of fun. And thanks to everybody who joined us. I'll say so long. Enjoy the rest of your week and weekend, everyone.